welcome to you all. Thursday night class, we have an opportunity to go off on some of the highways and byways, explore some of the secondary themes of this Vedanta philosophy, always remembering that whatever we discuss, it always goes back to the source, and that everything is connected like the parts in an automobile engine. They all work together, they're all interconnected, and so we come back to the fundamental theme. I usually hold forth for some time, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to share some dialogue or some questions or commentary. So formulate some question or some contribution while we're talking here, but free associate with something. My subject this evening is the inner light. And we can begin with a parable of Sri Ramakrishna, where he tells about a Brahmin widow. She was a very poor seamstress. She lived alone in a little cottage on a side street, and she would sit by the window to get the sunlight during the day, and she would sew and mend clothes. And one day she was sewing in the afternoon. It grew later and later. The sun went down, the setting, and pretty soon it was dark. She could hardly see, and she dropped her sewing needle. Now what could she do? She had to have that needle to continue work. So she got up and she went over. She put on her evening shawl, went to the door, opened the door, went down the front steps, walked down the side street, came to the main street, which was fully lit by the old-fashioned gas lamps. Now she could see something. Turned there onto the main street, went over to one of the posts there, the gas lamps, and began to walk around under the lamp as if she was looking for something. And she looked and looked. Pretty soon a policeman came on patrol that way. He saw her, he said, excuse me, he said, what, have you lost something? She said, yes, I've lost my sewing needle, very important for me. Oh really, said the policeman, yeah, well let me help you find it. He also looked around under the lamp, looked and looked. Are you sure? He said, you sure? He, this time he's down on his hands and knees, looking, searching everywhere for that needle. He said, are you sure that you lost it here? Can't find it anywhere. And the widow, she said, well, lost it here? No, I didn't lose it here. I lost it back in my house. And then the policeman said, well, if you lost it back in the house, why are you looking for it here? And she says, well, because this is where the light is. Made sense? So we're going to talk about light. And you remember the man who in the olden days, he was very fond of smoking. And he would smoke in the morning, and he would smoke at noon, and he would smoke in the afternoon and in the evening. And when he fell asleep at night, he'd put his pipe down on the table next to his bed. And sure enough, one night he woke at around 2 in the morning, and he wanted to smoke. He reached over there, he took his pipe, but he had no light for his pipe. Well, he didn't have made. Of course, back in those olden days, they didn't have like a book of matches. That's very modern. It certainly didn't have a cigarette lighter. Well, he got up, took his pipe, went downstairs. There was a lantern burning very low, turned up that lantern, looked around, put on his coat. Holding that lantern, then he went outside, pitch dark outside. Walked down onto the street, walked down the street towards the neighbor's house, holding that lantern in front of him. Came to the neighbor's house, and he knocked on the door. Knocked and knocked, no answer. Knocked on the door again, no answer. Knocked and knocked again. Finally upstairs, the shutters of the window upstairs open. Hello? What's going on down there? He said, oh, neighbor. I said, it's me. I'm your neighbor. And you know me. You know how fond I am of smoking. I don't have any light for my pipe. Can you give me a light? And the neighbor glared down at him and said, what, you fool? You're waking us up at this hour of the night? Can't you see that you have a lighted lantern in your hand? Which he did. Never thought to light his pipe from that lighted lantern which he was carrying. So our subject is light. And it's a very popular, well, it's a very important subject for students of the Vedanta philosophy, because light is the archetypal symbol for knowledge. And Vedanta is all about knowledge. That's why it's called Vedarupananda. That is the ultimate knowledge. But in Vedanta epistemology, of course, they're interested in the whole spectrum of knowing and the methods of knowledge. And light is a lot like like knowledge. Because just like knowledge removes ignorance, so light alone will remove darkness. And if there's a big room, and in that room there are tables and chairs, and there are lamps, and there are people, and it's pitch dark, and everyone's milling around, they're bumping into each other, they're tripping over the chairs, they're falling over the table. If you were to go into such a room, you would see that there's a big problem in this room. What can I do to help? Maybe you may stumble over there yourself and try to help someone to find a chair. Maybe if you were a good devotee, you'd kneel down and you'd pray to God to please help us to solve this problem. But it would be more efficient just to walk over and flip on the lights. You turn on the light, and everybody sees what's going on. They can easily find their chairs. Everything is now in working order. So similarly it is in the Vedanta philosophy. Our big problem is darkness. That is avidya. It's ignorance. That's our problem. How can you remove ignorance? There's only one way you can remove ignorance, and that is with knowledge. You can't remove ignorance by work. You can't remove ignorance by good deeds. You can't remove ignorance by praying to God in heaven. The only way that you can remove ignorance is by bringing in knowledge. That's why Vedanta philosophy, they're very interested in knowledge and light, the symbol, the archetypal symbol, which is light. Now, in ancient times, this Vedanta philosophy comes to us beginning from the most ancient of all the religious scriptures in the world. The writings of the ancient Aryans, that is the Rig Veda, and all of the Vedic texts that followed on afterwards. And those Vedic peoples were worshippers of light. It was only much later on, during the Tantric period, that in India they began to worship anthropomorphic gods. That is, human-like gods. Some with 2 arms, some with 4 arms, some with 10 arms, whatever. But we can all recognize them as being human-like. But in the ancient Rig Vedic hymns, there are no anthropomorphic gods. All of the devas and the devatas, they were forms of light. For example, one of the very most famous of the gods, still worshipped today in our temple. His name is Agni, that is fire. Fire that's the source. All the Vedic sacrifices begin with the sacred fire, and offering into the sacred fire the ghee and the offerings. The smoke carries it up into heaven, consumed by the great Devata, who is the Lord of fire, that is Agni, a light god. Similarly, at night, you look up in the sky, you can see Chandra Devi, that is the Soma, the moon, shining in the heavens. They worship the moon. There's hymns written to the goddess of the moon. And when the moon sets, you see in the morning light. When darkness disappears, there comes the dawn, the light of the dawn. That's called Ushas. That's a goddess. And that's an object of worship. They worship the light, they worship the dawn. And of course, when the sun rose in the sky, what more of a wonderful God could we worship than the sun even today, shining inside. It's difficult for us to even conceive a being who is greater than the sun, which is the soul, which is the eye of heaven, which is the center of our whole universe, which is the source of all light and all the heat and all the energy. That's the source of it all, comes from Surya Deva, Devata of the sun. But even the sun and the moon and the lightning, worshipped as the Lord of the gods, Indra. All of those lights, they're recognized by the Upanishadic times. They just made that great discovery that there is a being from whom all these lights depend upon for their light. The tatra suyo bhati na chandatarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam tamobhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. It's an old, I quote these, show these ideas are very ancient ideas, come to us out of the Upanishadic verses. And a lot of our verses this evening come to us from the Katha Upanishad. And there in the Katha Upanishad, it has some beautiful verses there. It says, Na tatra suryo bhati, that is there, that is in the Brahma Jnana, in the knowledge of the highest truth. There is no sun. The sun doesn't shine there. The moon doesn't shine there when you've attained self-knowledge, when you've attained illumination. There is no sun, the moon doesn't shine there. There is no, what to speak of these local, regional strikes of lightning. None of that is in the Brahma-jnana. All that, and there the verse says that it's Brahman shining, that is Satchidananda, that is existence, consciousness, bliss, which is ourself. That shining, everything else shines afterwards. And it's because of its shining that the sun and the moon and the stars also shine. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a dialogue between Janaka, who is the Maharaja, that is the king of Videha, and Yajnavalkya, the great sage of the Upanishads. And they met on one occasion and they discussed soul, God, and religion. And Yajnavalkya was so happy to have that religious discussion that he offered King Janaka a boon. And the boon was, well, you choose. And King Janaka's choice was that I want to be able to ask you any question. Okay, said Yajnavalkya, ask him any question. And then Yajnavalkya says, how is it that we have to, what is it that serves as a light for man? We need light in order to live. We can't live in darkness. We have to have light. What is the ultimate source of light for man? And Yajnavalkya says, well, the sun indeed is the light, O king. Because by the light of the sun, people sit, they go out, they work, and they return. Oh, yes, quite so, Yajnavalkya, says King Janaka. But when the sun has set, then what serves as a light for man? Well, when the sun is set, then the moon serves as a light. And by the light of the moon, people, you can sit, you can get up, you can go out, you can work and return. Yes, quite so, said Yajnavalkya. But when the sun is set and the moon is set, then what serves as a light for man? Well, then Yajnavalkya, well, then it's fire. Fire indeed is the light, O king, because by the light of the fire, a person can sit and go out and do his work and return. Yeah, quite so, said Yajnavalkya. But when the fire goes out, then what serves as a light for man? Well, then, says Yajnavalkya, you ask, well, it is speech. I remember in ancient times they used to worship the power of speech. It's called Vak. Goddess of the speech is within us. Yes, we're by the light of the speech. Hear what someone says, you can call to someone, find your way out, you can go out, work and return. Yes, quite so, said Yajnavalkya. But when the speech falls silent, then what serves as a light for man? Well, it's his own mind, said Yajnavalkya. He can still think, still figure out a way to get up and go out, do his work and return. Yes, quite so, said Yajnavalkya, but when the sun is set, and the moon is set, fire has gone out, speech is silent, you can't place your mind, put your attention on what you're doing, then what serves as a light for man? And then Yajnavalkya gives him the final yes, when the sun is set and the moon is set, then what serves as a light for man is the self, is the Atman, is your own true nature. It is that by which, the power by which the sun shines, and the moon shines, and the stars, and the lightning, and the fire, all shine by a reflected light. That is the light of the soul, of the self. So, we can see here the teaching, the metaphor of the archetypal symbol of light for the highest knowledge, that is the knowledge of our true self, the knowledge of Brahman. Now, in our spiritual practice, we find too, not only in the Upanishads, not only in the Vedas and the Upanishads, but also in the Shruti and the Smriti texts, like the Bhagavad Gita, and like, for example, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which I'll take as an example, because it serves as our basic source book and owner's manual for the practice on the path of meditation. And there, light is a subject which is of particular interest. Because as you know, when you read Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, he teaches us, first off, that if we are going to meditate on God, or if we are going to meditate on our true self, that how do we meditate? That in the Upanishadic times, there were many, in the Upanishads, you will find many vidyas. That means Upanishadic meditations. They were meditations that on different aspects of nature. Like, for example, that is things in nature which were inspiring and which were awe-inspiring and which were kind of like God. For example, the sky, the space, the wind, the air, the prana, the energy. These are all subjects here. The four directions. These are all subjects for the Upanishadic vidyas, for meditation in ancient times before Patanjali. Now, when we come to Patanjali, we find that he does not recommend. He doesn't discuss at all these Upanishadic vidyas. Rather, he makes this in yogic meditation, this is the source book here for yogic meditation, by the way. And as you know, there are many different kinds of meditation. And in this lineage, in this Ramakrishna order, in this tradition here, this Dashanami Sampradaya, this whole tradition of the Vedanta teaching, we teach yogic meditation, we could say. That's concentration meditation. Focus the mind, withdraw the mind from the external world, close your eyes and focus your mind on within. And Patanjali makes a good point there. He's saying that the best way to do that is not to meditate on something which is nameless and formless. No formless meditation. That's not so effective as meditating on a form. You want to have a name, and a form makes sense. You're going to focus your concentration. You got to focus it on something. You can't focus your mind on space. You can't really focus your one-pointed concentration on the sky. So therefore you want some particular thing in order to which to meditate upon. Now there's two kinds of things that you can choose. Patanjali, of course, gives us like a whole mini-mart there of options for our meditation. He doesn't lay down the rules for any one particular kind of meditation, object of meditation. But there are two in general, there are two different categories. One are called pratikas and one are called pratimas. Now pratikas are things you can meditate on something which is like God. That is, you could meditate on a god. You could meditate on a deva, for example. You could meditate on a Vedic deva, who is like God, but who is subordinate to Ishvara, who is the God. He's the God of all the gods. The problem with that, you could meditate, for example, on the breath, on the prana, and the prana is kind of like the energy, that is the life force. It's kind of like God. It gives us light and life. And there's hymns there in the Vedas to the glory of, and in the Upanishads, the glory of prana, that is the universal life energy. And we could meditate on that. That's like a pratika. And that will help us to concentrate our mind. But it won't give us bhakti or mukti. That's why you want to meditate on the second category, which are pratimas. That means an image of God. Not something which is like God, but something which is a symbol or a realistic image of God. Of course, today we have photographs. Back in the old Upanishadic times, they didn't have any photographs. But they had symbols. And Patanjali gives us a list there of many different symbolic forms that you can meditate on God, which are for the focus of your meditation. He doesn't specify any one particular form is give priority, one particular form over the others. But on several occasions, he does discuss that which is in fact the de facto best form for a most natural symbol of Satchidananda, that is the divinity within us, which is the light. A form of inner light, as it says there in the Bhagavad Gita. You meditate on the light of a candle burning in a windless place. This is Patanjali's image also. If you can imagine a candle. Little wind blows, the slightest little breeze is blowing, it flickers and dances all around. But there's not a flicker with it, is perfectly burning light, kind of a symbol of the achieving success in concentration and focus and meditation and samadhi. So that's kind of the... Now Patanjali also says that when you meditate on this, now let's just take for example, you are going, now what you meditate upon, whether you meditate upon a form of God, or whether you meditate on whatever, a triangle, you know, you get in the tantras. For example, here's in the heart chakra in the tantras. Let me describe for you the heart chakra. This is your object of meditation. If you are practicing Kundalini yoga, which is a variation here, a big variation, but it's still on Patanjali. You visualize the Anahata chakra. Now the Anahata chakra is like a lotus. Chakra means wheel, but the lotus looks like the wheel kind of looks like a flower with the petals folded out. Now we're taking an example here of the heart chakra. Has 12 petals. They're vermilion in color. And these are all now you can begin to visualize. You're going to visualize. Vermilion in color. In the center of that lotus, there are two triangles. There's an upward facing triangle, which is the energy of the earth, and there's a downward facing triangle, which is the pure consciousness. And these two intersect to form a kind of what we call a Star of David, in the interior of which there is a hexagram. The presiding deity of this chakra is Vayu, the god of the wind, seated on a black antelope. This is all you're visualizing now. You don't have the black antelope. On the right side, as you look at this, the drawings in the old sketchbook and the old tantric texts, you can see on the well, as you look at it, it's on your left side, but there you see there's a form of Shiva. Maybe in his heart center, maybe he's called Isha. It's a form, one of the aspects of Lord Shiva. Of course, as you know, the tantrics, they worship Shiva Shakti, consciousness and power. And so on the right side, there is a form of the goddess, the form of the Devi, who's on the right side. So you have the masculine and the feminine, both of them holding many accessories in their hands, all of which are symbolic. And so this is the focus for your heart meditation. You can see that's quite rich in imagery. And well, that's good. Maybe it's rich in imagery to keep our mind occupied. But Patanjali the end goal, of course, of yogic meditation is one-pointed concentration. So when you're focused down on one point, then we have to kind of boil it down to a point. So, well, the point is that whatever you meditate upon, and that depends, what are you going to meditate on? Well, that depends on your guru. That's why you have a guru who will give you mantra diksha, and will introduce you to your god or your goddess or the form that you are to meditate upon. So there's the rule of that is that he has to look into your mind and heart, see your karma and your past and your future, and then the guru will instruct you as to what is the proper object for your meditation. That's the tradition in this tradition. That's the rule. And but once you've been instructed, and Patanjali tells us that when you have your object of your meditation, maybe you're going to meditate on the form of Jesus, maybe you meditate on the form of Ramakrishna. Maybe you meditate on a triangle. Maybe you meditate on two interlocked triangles, or the form of a candle light burning in a windless place. Whatever. You can, well, this evening we're particularly focusing on the light. Patanjali, you can meditate within, or you can meditate externally or internally. And you remember how, well, in India, if you go to India, you'll see even today, in the morning, people go down to the river Ganges, they wade into the river, and there, when they're waist deep in the sacred river of the Ganges, they look up at the sun. There's the sun in the sky. Hold their hands kind of like this, just to block the sunlight, so they're looking through their fingers, and there they recite the Gayatri mantra, the great mantra addressed to God in the form of the sun. So their eyes are open. They're not sitting cross-legged in meditation, but they're meditating on God. And I remember one time in San Francisco, we were doing some renovation in the old temple in San Francisco, which was built in 1915 by one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Trigunatityananda. And some renovation was being done downstairs in the office downstairs, and we had removed some of the wall board from the middle office. And there, what did we find? We found that all around, behind, now it had been walled up in the course of time, many years past. Behind the wall, there were old-fashioned light sockets, light sockets, and the reminiscences there of Mr. Brown. We learn that Swami used to that he had all of that room was fitted with, these lights were about 2 feet off the ground. So he had the whole room kind of rigged with these light bulbs. And he would go in there in their office, close the door, turn on those lights, and he would just sit there, immersed in a flood of all that light. That was one of his forms of meditation. So you can meditate with eyes open. But of course, in the traditional yogic method is to meditate without you close your eyes, withdraw your mind from the external world, and to focus your mind on the heart center. And where it says in the Upanishads, it says, Angushta Matra Purusho Jyotir Ivadumaka Ishano Bhutabhavyasya Saivadya Saushva. That's the Upanishads. There it's that the meditate on God, meditate on the soul, meditate on Brahman, is what it's saying now in the Upanishads. They're calling it the Purusha. That means that's the Sankhya term for the soul. Meditate, the soul, they say, is of the size of like the size of your thumb. It's a form of something the size of your thumb, which is like a light the size of your thumb, which resides in the cave of the heart. Meditate upon that to realize your true self. That's the instruction given in the Upanishads. To meditate on that inner light. So that's the practice of meditation. And devotees and those initiated in this lineage often do meditate like that on a light in the cave of their heart. Now, sometimes people have asked me, somebody asked me once, he said, well, you're a Swami here. You've been meditating here a long time. Have you ever seen this light? They asked me that. So I thought, okay. Well, what's my answer to that? Well, if I meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, if I close my eyes and I can visualize Sri Ramakrishna in my mind's eye, and I can see Ramakrishna in my mind's eye, with the eye of my imagination, I can visualize Ramakrishna. And if I meditate on a light, yes, I can visualize that light in the cave of my heart, and I can see that light with my mind's eye. And then the person who asked me that says, yeah, but that's not what I mean. What you're saying is you're just imagining. Have you seen the real light? That's the answer. Have you seen the real light? Now let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about that. What does that mean? See the real light. Because you have to kind of, now we're talking here about Vedanta epistemology. We're talking here about the psychodynamics of what it means to know something. And, well, we could ask a question. One question that people have sometimes asked is that when you go outside and you look at the trees and you see people walking around, and how do you see them? Well, it's because the sun is shining. When the sun is shining, you look around, you can see all kinds of stuff. And if you harness the energy of the sun, maybe you can run the lights so you can see even inside using the solar power. You can see. But then we would ask, well, how can you see when a dream? When you're dreaming at night, you're walking through your dream and you look around, what do you see? There you see trees, you see people walking around, you see buildings, and you may look up in the sky and you may see the sun shining. But wait a minute. There is no sun. There's no sun. What is the? There's no electrical outlets there in the brain. There's no in your mind. There's no cables. There's no light bulbs. There's no sun. Similarly, it is when you meditate. For example, you visualize. Meditate means that you're going to focus your attention. Your attention is like light. It's going to focus on the object, and you're going to visualize that object. When you do see that object, you can visualize it. And with practice, you get practice more and more clearly. Maybe you can visualize it. But there is no. Let's say you're meditating on a candle. However much you visualize, there's no wax candle in your brain. There's no cotton wick that's undergoing combustion in your mind, in your brain, or otherwise your body would burn up. So there's no candle, and when you think about it, there's no object. There is no object that you're meditating on, just like in a dream. What do you see in a dream? You say, oh, I see a tree. I see a building. No, you don't. You don't see a tree. There is no tree. How could you see a tree in your dream? You can't fit a tree inside. A tree doesn't fit inside your head. How could you see a building? I tell you, maybe you're in Africa. You see an elephant, a giraffe. How can you get in the nadis of they say that when you dream, you're dreaming in the nadis of the heart. That's what it says in the Upanishad. Little thin vascular vessels. The mind is in the heart. How can you get an elephant inside the nadis of the heart? It's impossible. And yet, there you're seeing all those things. What's the answer to that? Well, the answer is, you're not seeing them. You don't see an elephant. You don't see a giraffe. You don't see a tree. And you don't see a light. What then do you see? Well, you don't see anything. You see, now here you get into epistemology. Because when we use the word see, we use the word that is in the intentional sense. When we talk about seeing something, part of what we mean by saying that, is that there is an object which is causing us, that is to say, we use the verb in a self-reflexive sense, what we mean is that there is an object that is out there that is causing me to see it. Something is causing me to see this. But in the dream, there's nothing out there. So you're not really literally seeing. You think you're seeing. What do you see in the dream? What you're seeing in the dream is a vritti in the mind. But it's not a prama vritti, which is what we see right now. Your mind is going out and is coinciding with all the objects. But that's a vritti of the waking state. What you're seeing is a smriti vritti. That is, you're recalling images from your memory which are coming back into your memory and are playing out in consciousness. You're not really seeing anything, but what you are aware of is have you ever if you take your phone, if you take your cell phone, and you hold your cell phone, if you have a timer on your cell phone, and it's got big numbers on it, you put your cell phone up there, maybe it's dark, okay? You're going to time yourself, so you put in something, and you look at your phone, and then you put your phone down, and you close your eyes. You can still see the numbers for a few seconds. It's called an eidetic image. You can still see the numbers, it's a 502, something like that, the digital numbers that were on your phone. You can see those for a couple seconds. Now, what are you seeing? You're seeing an eidetic image. That is, you're seeing the neurons in the brain, we could say, just to use a physical description, they're still in vibration. And just as when you hear the gonging of a bell, you hear the ringing of a church bell, for example, chiming the hours of the bell. We hear that down in San Diego, Vedanta Society. Bong, bong, bong. At the end, you're never quite sure if it's done or not, because you keep hearing after the sounding is over. You still, for one or two times, you still imagine that your ears are still reverberating with that sound. Similarly, it is, our consciousness is still reverberating. That is, in the psyche, images. When we recall things, when we recall images, they reverberate in our consciousness. The vritti is still, and it is as if we are seeing them. So we call them, those become like dream imagery. So what's my point? My point is that when you talk about, in other words, the point is that when you meditate on something, it's not as if that is a symbol, that is a pratima, that it's an image. It's not going to help you to strain your eyes, for example, to try to see that light within your heart, because there is no light in your heart. It's a symbol that's helping you, just like your mantra. A mantra also is a sound symbol. It's helping to focus and guide your attention to a point. And what's happening is that that's kind of helping you, that's a gateway, as it were, to enable you to focus your attention. And thus it has, and that's its value, that it's the key that will, it's the doorway that will unlock our access to deeper levels of reality. And so the purpose here is not to actually see let's say you're a Christian and you're going to meditating on a cross, the symbol of Jesus and his great sacrifice in the world. You meditate on that cross, you meditate. Somebody said, well, have you seen the cross in meditation? Well, what if you did see the cross? What if you were meditating after 30 years and suddenly you saw, oh, wait a minute, there's something there, and you look down, you brush it off. What? Yeah, it's a piece of wood. You think, oh, what? Can you imagine? What would that mean? You'd be seeing a piece of wood in your mind? It doesn't make sense. That's because the cross is a symbol. Well, let me conclude after that sidetrack here on the Vedanta epistemology. Let me conclude here with a little brief folk tale about light from the old Russian folk tale about a man who, he was an old man, the father. He had 3 sons. And the eldest son, and the middle son, and the youngest. And his oldest son and his middle son, well, so he wasn't quite sure to which son he was going to leave his estate and his great manor house. And so he hit on a plan one day. He said, yes, I'm decided I'm going to leave my house. To which one of you I'm living here alone, feel like the whole house is empty. So to which one of you can fill up this house? So, yes, a challenge. He says, well, okay. The eldest son. The father went off to the market one day. The eldest son came there and he brought a big horse. Led the horse there right inside the house. And when the father returned, he opens the door, he comes in. What does he see? A huge horse standing there, taking up a huge amount of space. Wow, that's very impressive. Takes up a lot of space, but it doesn't really fill the whole house. So good try. So cross him off the list. Then the second son, who's going to try the next day, second son. Father goes off to market. The son came in with a great wagon load of hay. And he moved all that hay into the house, stacked it up in their own room and one room and other huge piles of hay everywhere. And the father comes home, he opens the door, and there he sees it's stacked up everywhere is these huge haystacks. Oh, very good. You filled up a lot of the house, but still not completely full. So that was the chance of the youngest son to try. Father goes off, the younger son, he came in. The sun set, father came home, now it's dark. And the younger son, he's inside, and he brought in there a candle. And he just put a simple candle there. lit the candle. Yeah, sure enough, that small, even that light in that dark, whole dark house, the light flickering of that light filled all that room. The father came in, they're looking around. Yes, he saw everywhere, he saw the reflection of that candlelight. So the son, he inherited the whole house because he knew the true value of the light. So that's the archetypal Vedantic symbol, the symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, and that's our subject. So we walked around the subject a little bit. Please give me some, what time we got? Yeah?
8:30.
Really?
28, 8:28.
Oh, well, too bad. Okay, sorry, yes.
Did the name Vayu get assigned to the star before or at the same time as the Hebrew, the name and the symbol? Is there any record of the chronology there?
The Hebrew? Oh, you're talking about the Star of David?
Well, I
What do you?
don't want to insult anybody who called it something else, but the two stars together, the six-pointed star.
Yeah, the 6 point. Well, the six. That's an ancient. That's a hexagram, and that has many different meanings. And in Tantra, of course, it has a very fundamental meaning there of the two and the interlocking triangles. And so, yeah, no, that has nothing to do. That's just Jungian psychology. We could say these are archetypal forms. The triangle is one of the geometric forms, archetypal forms. There are certain forms which are universal forms. The circle, the square, the triangle, the hexagram, the pentagram, and then the Greek philosopher Plato adds one or two more. And so yeah, that's the only correspondence.
So
Yeah.
it was developed outside of the theocracy, just pure psychology, that the human brain responds to certain
Yeah.
shapes.
I would say.
And how do you spell Vayu?
Vayu. That's the god of the wind. That's the Vedic god of the wind.
Or particularly associated with the hexagram?
No. I didn't say anything.
Oh,
He just happened to be in that. He just has happened to be there in the that phantasmagoria there. That whole of the heart chakra is associated with the presiding deity of that chakra.
Were you saying
Yeah.
that in your talk that when you see lights inside, they're not lights? Is that what you're saying? They're not lights?
Well,
Man is the-
are they lights?
It's all
Man is a self-luminous being. And
Yeah.
all beings are, they're going down into the darkness or coming up into the light.
Yeah.
And the people have no
Well-
light, you know it. And there's plenty of light there.
Yeah. And we can see here, obviously, we've given there's a lot of food for thought here. One food for thought is what is light? Another food for thought is what does it mean to see? See, these are all deep philosophical questions. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not too deep.
Okay, I think we're gonna stop here. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may Brahman protect us, may Brahman guide us and give us strength. May what we've studied bear fruit. May we live in peace and harmony. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swami.
I was out
Okay.
with that Jewish star one time, I had appearance with the Los Angeles